Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? I hope you enjoyed my last video on the Radiocraft magazine. This time I have a very old one, number 24, volume 2, Saturday, September 11th, 1869. It's Appletons Journal, Literature, Science, and Art. And this is what it looks like. I'm not going to take it out of the package. It's very fragile. I mean, it looks good here, but I'm not taking it out. It's 157 years old. So uh, my issue here is September 11th. This one here originally came out April of 1869. So I'll give you some information of what I've discovered, and it's quite a bit. I hope you enjoy it. So, Appleton's Journal, Literature, Science, and Art. This issue here is 157 years old. And I probably paid $10 or $12 for it. I've had it for a couple of years, but I didn't think anybody would be interested in learning about it. But so I picked a whole bunch of magazines, and this one said, oh, this one will be interesting. So I did some research on it. So this one is number 24, volume 2, Saturday, September 11th, 1869. And I paid about $15 for it Canadian, which is maybe $9 or $10 US. So the average weekly circulation for these then was between 30 and 40,000 copies weekly. So the journal debuted April 1869. The earliest issue peaked at 50,000 copies. The new format went from weekly to monthly in 1876 because they were competing against another magazine called Harper's Weekly, which started in 1857 and went till 1916. So the weekly ones of Appleton's Journal started the weekly ones 1869, and it ended June 26th, 1876. And then when they went to the monthly, 1876 to 1881. It started the numbering system in 1876 from volume 1, number 1. It didn't carry on with the weekly numbering system. See, the publisher was Daniel Appleton and Company. So, and Company, I found out, were his brothers, and he had quite a few of them. He released a separate publication called Appleton's Magazine from 1905 to 1909. So notable editors for the Appleton's Journal were Edward L. Youmans. He was born in 1821 and he died in 1887. He later was the founder of Popular Science Monthly. Then they had Robert Carter, the next editor. He was born in 1819 and he died in 1879. He was author and editor. And after him was Oliver Bell Bunce, 1828, 1890. And after him, Charles Henry Jones, 1848, 1913. He was the final editor. So just to go back to Edward L. Youmans, who was later he founded Popular Science Monthly. That magazine, Popular Science, began in May of 1872 and ended April 27th, 2021, 149-year run. And the company and probably sold all of its assets, all that was defunct as of November 2023. So some of the characters and stories that they had in this one of the stories, and they're in the beginning, was done by a fella called W.E.H. Lecky, which was William Edward Hartpole Lecky. He was born 1838, died 1903. Also in here, they have something called the Aeronaut of the 17th century. And that was spelled Aeronaut, Aeronaut. And there's got a little bit more information about that. It's really fascinating. So in this magazine as well, in the last 4 or 5 pages, is all advertisements of the 1860s, which some of them of the names might still be familiar today. So a lot of the ads were Colgate and Company, and they made what you call a vegetable soap, which was otherwise known as perfumes that they did of all kinds. Another one, maybe Todd and Company from New York, they did gold pens. Tiffany and Company, jewelry, New York. Tarrant's Seltzer, which was made from Germany, so was imported to New York. Cod liver oil, Nolan's cod liver oil, which was from Philadelphia. Appleton's Railway Guide. It was the first of its kind to have a guide, so in 1869. Bishop and Rain, R-E-I-N, Rain, they were jewelers. Another company, Bardou and Sons, they did opera glasses. If you're up in the balcony, had little tiny, look like binoculars. That company started in 1818. And then they had one called a parlor steam engine, which was those little toys that you see on the Antiques Roadshow that operate on steam and little gadgets. Lots of toys. They were from New York. Fallon and Colander, they did billiard tables in New York. And Gillotte's steel pens, they were from England. Joseph Gillott was born in 1799 and he passed in 1872. They had O'Keefe's and Sons Company, which they were into from Rochester, New York. They worked for or a company worked with them called American Seeds, and supposedly they had some of the largest winter head lettuce of what I could find. They were like massive size lettuce heads. Then they had Howell's satin finish hairpins, which provided smooth, non-snagging finish. I'm sure the ladies were delightful about that. Then they had Ingram's automatic self-injecting syringes, which were spring-activated plungers. Waltham watches, which were done by a fellow named P.S. Bartlett. And he was born 1834 and he died 1902. And then they had something called Lady Trousseau A, and they were selling for $150. They were what you call, they were like a hope chest of some kind that would hold personal possessions a bride would assemble for her wedding, a hope chest. I'm assuming that's what it is. So just to go back a bit, when I emphasize the word aeronaut. So aeronaut. There were 2 guys in this journal that they were called aeronauts at the times. James Glaisher, Glaisher, he was born in 1809 and he died in 1903. He did the first balloon flight in the U.S. in 1862. And the other fellow, his name was Washington H. Donaldson, born in 1840, and he died in 1875. And there's a question mark next to his date of death because I'll be telling you the reason why that is. So there's a book that came out about that called the Aeronaut book by an author named Brian Young. And my copy of Appleton's journal shows a little bit about the aeronauts 150 years prior to Brian Young's publishing date. So Washington H. Donaldson was known as Prince of American Aeronauts. He was a daredevil, world's famous balloonist, a tightrope walker, magician, ventriloquist. He crossed the Genesee River near Rochester, New York, an 1,800-foot tightrope while pushing a man in the wheelbarrow. Brave. He would perform trapeze acts while suspended from his balloon a mile up in the air, and do trapeze acts. So some of his major milestones of this Washington Donaldson, he did the first attempt at a transatlantic crossing in 1873, but he was forced down by weather, I'm assuming in Connecticut. He was the first to do an ever aerial wedding from a balloon in 1874. He partnered with P.T. Barnum, who was Phineas Taylor Barnum, who was born in 1810, died in 1891. Much of his fame was fueled by his work as an aeronaut for P.T. Barnum's Hippodrome. So the part of him, of Washington Donaldson, his death date of 1875 with a question mark, is that the final flight, July 15th, 1875, Donaldson and a reporter, Newton S. Grimwood, who was only 22 years old at the time, they lifted off from Chicago in a massive balloon named the P.T. Barnum, and they were caught in a violent storm over Lake Michigan and vanished. Grimwood's body was found 1 month later. So he died in 1875 as well, 22 years old. And supposedly some boat of some kind was on Lake Michigan, and it was the last reported seeing the balloon, they said, about 30 miles away in a storm, a really violent storm, lots of lightning and thunder, that they could see the basket of the balloon skipping on the lake because there was heavy winds. And but they say that Donaldson and his balloon were never seen again. Now you think that maybe it sunk in Lake Michigan, or got snarled up on shore somewhere, or way out beyond. Did you think with the amount of people that live in that area now that they might have found something? Don't know. So hang on a sec. There was a connection to this Washington H. Donaldson. So in the early 1900s, because he died in 1875, they say that L. Frank Baum was born in 1856, died in 1919, that Washington H. Donaldson's story was an inspiration for Oz. Historians suggest that Donaldson was a primary inspiration for the Wizard of Oz. Like Donaldson, the character of the wizard was a circus performer, a ventriloquist, a balloonist who disappeared during an ascent. And that is pretty much what I was able to find. And just a little bit more here. So the Daniel Appleton and Company was an American publishing company founded by Daniel Appleton, who was born in 1785 and he died in 1849. He had opened up a general store that had other books. He was selling books in there from different publishers. And one of the famous publishers that he sold books out of his store was from Charles Darwin. So he had opened up the Appleton Company existed, like the journal company existed from 1825, and it was defunct in 1933. The successor was Appleton, Century, and Company, 1933 to 1948. And he had 2, 3, 4, he had five other brothers that were all part of the business in some way, shape, or form. And then that was changed in 1948 to Appleton Century Crofts, Crofts, Crofts. And his brothers that were involved in this magazine, their names were William Henry Appleton, 1814, 1899, George Swett, Swett, Appleton, 1821, 1878, John Appleton, 1817, 1881, Daniel Sidney Appleton, 1824, 1890, and Samuel Francis Appleton, 1826, 1883. So because another magazine was competing with them, which was known as Harper's Weekly, their first issue was January 3rd, 1857, and their final issue was May 13th, 1916. They had done 3,100 issues, or 62 volumes, and after 1916, it was absorbed, which I'm assuming was like a Sunday newspaper of some kind. I didn't find much information on it. It was called The Independent. So for my American folks, they might know what The Independent is, because I do not. I'm up from Canada, and the information that I tried to find on that, and they showed some other Chautauquan newspaper that had merged in with The Independent, and it went like way out. So it was way away from this. So I thought it was very interesting that the Aeronaut story in here was a story that L. Frank Baum liked, the creator of The Wizard of Oz, because a little bit about L. Frank Baum. I mean, when he was growing up in the 1850s, he was born in 1856. His father was involved with the oil producing companies, and he had supported his son to get into printing and publishing. So with this story being, inspired to create The Wizard of Oz, which there are Wizard of Oz comic books and magazines, it's a great way to finish off this video with that. So if you like this, like, comment, and subscribe. All of this 6 or 7 pages took me 8 or 10 hours to compile, and here I am almost at the 20-minute mark, done, lickety split. So if you really like this, let me know in the comments. If you want to hear more about this, please let me know. I'll be glad to do the research and share the information. So thank you very much, everybody, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. Thank you again. God bless.